Welcome, advocate, to another episode of the Lead in Equity podcast, a podcast that focuses on supporting educators with the tools and resources necessary to ensure equity at their schools. Today's special guest is Miss Joy Stevenson Laws. So, without further ado, Joy, thank you so much for joining us today.
And thank you for having me today.
Pleasure's all mine. I'm excited for today's topic. But before we get started, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you currently do.
Okay, by trade, I'm an attorney, been practicing for over 40 years. But in terms of who I really am, I'm somebody who likes to learn and try to be aware of my surroundings as well as myself. So I try to practice knowing who I am and being aware. That more accurately describes who I am as opposed to what I actually do for a living. But from a professional standpoint, I'm an attorney, healthcare attorney, been practicing for over 40 years, and I have a wellness company called phlabs.org that focuses on holistic wellness.
All right. Well, again,
Right.
welcome to the show. So
Okay.
let's get into today's topic. We're talking about our little ones. And when it comes to children around 5 or 6 years old, sometimes teaching them those skills as far as like emotional safety, stranger danger, if you will, those type of things, it's not always easy for us as adults to be able to communicate those type of things as teachers and also as parents. Now, of course, as educators, we're mandatory reporters, and so we know how to utilize certain protocols based off of things that we are told. But again, we're not always around. So I want to start with, what are some things that we can look for as adults to make sure that our young ones are safe and have the resources that they need in order to stay emotionally aware of what's happening?
Yeah. The best answer to that from my experience is to be first aware of how we interact with our young ones. Because it's not so much trying to find the issue that will trigger a response. It's more looking in ourselves and trying to determine, are we really emotionally available to our younger ones to where they feel comfortable to
Mm,
tell us anything? What have we done to ensure that they're truly emotionally safe? And part of that takes us educating them from an early age in a way that they can understand. So, because obviously the brain develops at different stages in their lives, in different degrees. So, for young ones, for those who are more, aware how the brain develops, they're in theta mostly, and they absorb a lot from their environment. The rational brain has not come on board quite yet. That's down the line. So at that stage, they're into feelings. They want to feel. Telling a child at 5 that they're safe, they don't get it. They're not capable of understanding that. They have to feel that coming from you, that you're safe. It's difficult to communicate that in our language to them. We have
mhm.
to find a way to get on their level to communicate that. So we do that by having them tell us how they feel. Do they have knots in their stomach? Are they feeling pain? Do they feel uncomfortable, icky? Find words that they can appreciate and relate to, and let them know, anytime you feel icky, anytime somebody tells you something that doesn't sound right, anytime, just come to mommy, come to daddy, or whomever, come to a safe adult, because sometimes daddy or mommy could be the problem. So
Yeah.
recognizing every kid needs to have a one or two completely safe adults that they recognize as safe and that they can go to. So it's not so much to run away from home, it could be a problem. Those are signs, but that's really not the true issue. The issue is really with us making ourselves aware that we need to be available. For many of us, including myself, I work, I make sure you have a nice home and, you go to a good school. I read the bedtime stories. I make sure I pick you up from school. It's like, what can I do for you? Are you okay? You look okay. It's about spending that extra time to, not in a rush, to be present, for lack of a better word, being present, truly present with your kids so that they can be feel safe to tell you anything. And if there's a lesson to be learned from for example, my experiences and why I wrote the book, it's knowing myself well enough to know that, okay, Joy, when you're with, it's not about getting them to bed so that you can continue your work from the office, so you're on that
Mhm.
timeline, it's
Right,
not about
right.
getting to work early in the mornings, and not being able to tune in before they go to school that there's something going on. If you're going to take on the responsibility of being a parent, know that you have to be 100% present with those kids. They're not something you fit within a schedule. And I know it's tough because of financial issues. At the end of the day, we're in a society where both parties or parents might have to work. And maybe that's a decision. Maybe we decide not to have kids. If that's the case, that's a decision we should make. But understand that the repercussions of not doing that can be devastating down the road because it creates dissociation. It creates all sorts of psychological nightmares down the road for those kids. And to heal from that is more difficult in the long run. So, it's just that awareness of ourselves, to be aware of our kids and what their needs are. And that's the critical thing that we need to look for.
I love that you're starting the conversation off this way because some things that really stuck out to me that you said was one, you started with what have we done as adults? What have we done to create a space to where our students feel comfortable with speaking to us? And then you circle back later on in your response that you want the kids to be able to tell you, how do I create a relationship, still be an authority figure? I'm still parent, I'm still teacher, but create a space in which my students feel or my child feels comfortable with telling me, especially at such a young age.
Yeah, yeah. Be present with them. I know we have a lot of things going on, but when you're with that child, when you're at home, with her or him, make sure that the phone is not close, is not close by. We're not trying to take calls at the same time that we're trying to relate to our kids. It's difficult, I understand. But when you understand the consequences of not doing that, we'll reevaluate what our priorities are. The biggest issue is being present with them so that they know that you are understanding their feelings, that you're relating to their feelings, that we don't tell them to shut up or big boys don't cry or that we don't tell them, their feelings don't matter because that's what they have to communicate with at that age. So telling a child at an early age that they shouldn't show their feelings or that their feelings don't matter is devastating because that's their way to communicate. They're not advanced mentally to communicate logically. It happens at a later age, like 9, 10, 11, 12. In the early stages, 4, 5, 6, 7, the logical brain is not on track yet. It's not biologically possible to tell, for them to communicate logically. And our attempts to force them to communicate the way we do by having them stuff their feeling is devastating. I'm not sure that people realize how devastating you're asking a child to do what they're not capable of doing.
Yeah.
Let's look step back and look at what we're saying. When we tell a 4-year-old, don't cry, it's okay. You know, tough it out. You're asking them to think logically. And until we start looking back at ourselves and figuring out how we relate to our kids, things will never change, and we will continue to do damage to our kids, and they will grow into adults who are emotionally damaged. And the way back, the healing path from that damage to being themselves is tough because you're creating anxiety, you're creating PTSD, you're creating all sorts of issues that show up later in life. And then we go on the meds, which creates other issues. They may respond in a way that society doesn't like. I can go on with all the issues that that stem from all that. We know what
Okay.
they are. We see them every day.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. In our society in the United States, there's you could agree that boys tend to be treated a little bit different or harsher, if you will, when it
Of
comes to
course.
emotional. So as boys, we tend to be told don't cry and those kind of things.
Yeah, yeah, and not only that, for even for abuse to occur with a boy, many of us aren't even looking in that direction to identify issues. If it's a girl, we're more protective because we're thinking, oh, it's never going to happen, or if it happens, he can tough it out, or whatever. The logic for that is usually boys are definitely they have a tougher time in that respect because of what society has managed to brainwash us as parents on. So yeah, yeah, totally, of
So
course.
where's the line then, right? Because we still want our boys to be raised to be, I don't know, leaders or raised to be a certain way, household provider, those traditional viewpoints
Right.
as far as growing up to be a man.
Yeah, yeah,
Where mhm,
yeah. So let's look at it biologically or
mhm,
neurologically. The line is you have to be aware of how the brain develops, of our bodies develop, and work with that, and don't try to force things on kids that they're not capable of. So we as the body or the brain matures, then you can start teaching the things that the brain will accept at that point in time. But we do know that there are limitations to the brain when kids are younger. And that's why the book discusses the ages of 5, 6, 7. We know that. So at that point in time, we work with what we have. It's not, and then after that, when logic starts to come online, then we teach differences. Okay, you need to be responsible, you need to provide. However the school system or the parents decide to impart that knowledge in a way that they can accept. But the way to do it is certainly not to have them stuff their feelings at an early age when they're incapable of doing so. And in order to do so, they have to change who they are, which then manifests itself in issues and all sorts of psychological issues down the road.
okay. Where's the research that supports taking this approach as
Mhm.
opposed to what we've been doing, like what has often happened in the past?
There's tons of research on that. In fact, I wrote another book called Chains to Wings. It talks about all the neurological, how the brain develops. We just Google, or I guess there's AI now, which works even better, assuming you can trust the research. It's not difficult to find. Just look up kids' brain development between the ages of 2 to 8. What are they capable of understanding? Their brains, the brain waves at that point, there's theta and alpha,
Mhm,
and the alpha is the more developed portion of the brain as you approach more logic to beta. Now,
mhm,
the brain just absorb. It's almost like a semi-dreamy state. That's when kids learn the most by looking around them. They learn a lot from us as parents. They by watching us, not by what we tell them, but by watching us, by listening, by feeling. Those skills are developed at that age. That's what they're developing because that's when they're looking. They have no basic, they don't have a frame of reference like we do as adults. You can know that by walking by a stove, if you put your hands on the stove, it's going to burn you because maybe you've had the experience or you're
mhm,
told, you read it somewhere. A kid doesn't have that necessarily. He's going to have to put his hand on the stove for it to burn to have that frame of reference. That's how the brain they're not developed in the same way that we are. So the research is not hidden. It's there. I mean, Google. I could send it to you. I'll be happy to. I've written about it. At Google, it's easy to find credible research, not internet crap. This is neuro, this is neuroscience, not Instagram friendly thing. This is actual studies and science. So in that respect, we need to just, if we're aware, perhaps if we're aware, and maybe we can come back and talk about the science another time, if we're
mhm,
aware of the science to support it, then perhaps people, and that's a good point, people will be able to wrap their heads around it and recognize that this is not woo, it's not somebody trying to to emasculate men. It's just facts. You can only do what you can accept at that point in time. And when you encourage boys not to show their feelings at an early age, what happens is that they stuff those feelings and it
mhm,
manifests itself both physically and mentally.
Yeah.
That's just how the body works.
And then they become adults and they've been always taught, don't say this, don't do that, don't express
Exactly.
yourself. I remember those conversations that I would hear other parents say, don't let the girls see you cry.
And at what age? Like at 5, 6, right?
Yeah, young age.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's
young age.
that's what they're
Yeah.
being trained at an early age. And obviously that's going to impact them when they get older, relationships and
Yeah.
working with others, those kind of things. So you're bringing up some really good points.
Yeah, thanks. But no, and these you're looking at the number one offender. It's if I didn't take the time, or if I wasn't motivated to take the time
Mhm.
to do it, to do the research and to figure it out, trust me, we would be having a different conversation.
Yeah,
We're
well,
having a different conversation. But there comes a point where you have generationally, we have to look back at
mhm,
ourselves and figure out, do I want to take this into the next generation? Should I be looking at finding out things for myself versus just what society has taught me. And there comes a point when we have to take responsibility for ourselves and not
mhm.
just listen and absorb.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. And I can appreciate you for saying, look, I've done it myself because sometimes as those who do consultations, who write books, things like that, sometimes it comes off as if we know everything. And we may know a lot, but when you have that firsthand experience,
Oh yeah.
that's helpful as well to be able to share your story with other people and look, hey, I made mistakes here. I don't want to see you do the same things. So at some point you got to a place where you decided, look, I'm going to do some research. I'm going to figure out how can I support other families to not make the same mistakes as I did. So
Yep.
let's do this. Let's do this because I don't want to just have a conversation with you about, oh, we need to do better, make sure we need to do these things. Walk me through that. Let's say I have a 5-year-old and like how would I start how would I initiate the conversation? What are some things I should say? Like walk us through that.
Okay. So if you have a 5-year-old, it's important to make the 5-year-old feel safe with you. That's
Mhm.
number one. And by safe, I'm not talking about physically safe. I'm talking about emotionally safe. So it's not about trying to get them to a certain place. It's just being with them genuinely. If we're gonna go outside and take a walk, make sure you're walking with them and engaging with them, not just being there physically. It's creating the environment where they feel that you can engage with them and they can tell you anything. So going for a walk is not just accompanying them with your cell phone. Playing a video game with them is not just being there until your phone rings. It's having that 5-year-old know and feel, not less about knowing, having that 5-year-old feel that when you're with them, that you're actually present with them and you can appreciate and understand the feelings that they're going through. When they get to that level of security with you, where they feel that they're safe, because safety is one of emotional safety, not physical safety. Many kids recognize they're probably safe at home, depending on where they live. When they feel emotionally safe with you, is when they will open up to you or with you to tell you things that they're feeling, knowing that they will not be judged, that they will not feel ashamed, that you're not there to judge them. You can feel it with them, you can be with them, and that when daddy comes home, he's really spending the time with them and not trying to multitask with somebody else. It's their time. It gives them
Okay.
space to be themselves with you. There's no other way to do it beyond presence, being with them, being present with them. And I understand that in today's world or society, that's tough. No joke. I
It's not
mean,
easy.
it's not easy. No, no, especially when you have to pay the mortgage or the rent and you're both working. But if as parents we get together to where we divide the duties to where if mommy can be present while daddy's doing something else, and when daddy comes home, daddy knows that it's important to be present too while mommy's cooking dinner. We can figure it out as a nuclear family how we're going to split the task, knowing full well what our job is. It's not just being home. Kids have parents home all the time. Being home is not the issue. It's being present with your kids when you are home. I don't know how else to explain it. It's really that. It's because we're going through the motions. Okay, I got home from work at 5. My kid comes home at 4. I'll be home in time. We're gonna read a story together. We're gonna take a walk. We're gonna go hit ball. Yeah, yeah. Is
Mhm.
that real presence? You know, that's what we know.
Yeah.
We're performing presence.
Mm.
There's a difference between being present and performing
Perform.
presence.
I
You
would
know, we have to be, they have to, and they'll feel it.
I would add that, when you say emotional safety and children need to feel safe to be able to communicate with their parent or guardian, whoever, our response to me sounds very important as well. So if a 5-year-old, 6-year-old drops something on us that we weren't expecting and that they participated in or that they heard or something was done to them, our demeanor, the way we control our emotions, like you said, what have we done to create that space needs to be careful or mindful as well. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, of course, you make perfect sense. The parent's response has to be no form of judging. In fact, they need to feel safe when they communicate with you that that they're not they don't need to feel shame
Right.
or any condescension. The adults need to be mature enough to be able to take anything that comes back at them from the kids and also make them feel safe. At the end
Absolutely.
of the day, it's tell me whatever you need to tell me. You know, they need to feel that they're not going to be judged, they're not going to be shamed, and they're going to be safe with whomever that adult is. Hopefully, some mom and a dad.
Yep. Yeah. To me, that's a big. I agree. We
So,
need to be present, meaning, like you said, we're not on checking our phones. We're not there until someone else reaches out or calls us, and oh, now I got to go to my next appointment. Which is, like you said, it's hard. It's hard because we want to make sure bills are getting paid, food is being like those basic needs are being met as well, but the emotional
survival
needs,
needs. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have that, they're not going to survive.
Yeah, I get the line there, and then again, we
Yeah,
often treat boys differently than our girls, and so we need
yeah.
to still make sure that our boys are being raised to be emotionally safe and competent and intelligence and those kind of things as well. So these are all great points. I'll say this, Joy,
Mhm.
I've learned a lot in this conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation as well. I'd love for you to take us home with any final words of advice you want to provide to our listeners out there.
For sure. So at the end of the day, what we're teaching kids when we're present with them like that is awareness. And as I'm sure you know, we grow by being aware of ourselves so that we can observe what our patterns are. We can observe what we're doing so that we can change or adapt to be better persons. Now, when it comes to kids, it's the first stage by being present with them and having them share their feelings at that stage of their lives with us. We're also starting the awareness process with them. They know how they feel, they watch how they feel. It doesn't feel good. It's not a secret. The book is the kids' book I had is Secrets That Sting and Secrets That Sparkle. They know they can tell the difference, to be aware of the difference between those secrets that aren't good to keep because it doesn't feel good, the tummy doesn't feel good, they're in pain, or those secrets like a birthday party that they're going to have for their dad, that those are good secrets. It makes them so we're all trying to start the kids out at an early age to and making them understand the whole concept of being aware of your feelings, and so that you can then tell mom or dad so that something can be done about it. And as adults, that's the same thing that we're doing, but from a different perspective. You know, we're aware of our feelings and then we change. You
Absolutely.
know, I'm checking locks. Yeah. Okay, I know I'm doing it. I'm not unsafe anymore. Okay, Joe, why are you doing that? You used to check locks because that's how you grew up. Your parents used to do that. No, you're in a safe area. You don't have to do that anymore. But I got there by observing, observing myself. I became aware. If I weren't aware, I would be the pattern. I
Yeah.
just keep doing it. So the earlier we start telling kids, teaching kids to be aware before they're even knowing that's what we're doing, they will become more responsible, more emotionally secure adults.
There we go. Joy, if we have some folks that want to connect with you, what's the best way to reach you online?
They can go to my website at phlabs.org. It's a nonprofit where we tell them all sorts of stuff, good stuff about life.
Okay.
So phlabs.org.
hlabs.org. And remind us the name of your book.
The name of the book is Secrets That Sparkle and secrets that sting.
All right. Well, Joy, it's
Okay.
been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was fun.